Everybody in attendance tonight, get a bottle in your hands and pour up. And if you are KME, hated them.
Hello, and welcome to Inconsequential Souls. Today, I wanted to discuss at length some very exciting news. Recently, there was some gameplay footage released for Dark Souls 3, and I'm really excited to discuss this today because the gameplay footage just so happened to be a little bit of I guess a little bit of the tricks of the trade of what a thief class is going to be like in the upcoming title. Now this time around, it's not really necessary to mention the essential thief weapons because according to the gameplay footage, it seems as though the developers understand that concept already. But just for the sake of understanding, the essential weapons were the trusty dagger, bow and arrow, some kind of arm guard weapon, and throwing knives. Two of them did appear. The thief did have a buckler. Well, actually, no. 3 of them appeared. It just didn't have the throwing knives. Now, even though I say that they're essential weapons, that's just when you really delve deep into the character. But as far as a starting class type item, most of the time throwing knives are found throughout the world where you can just pick them up. So the fact that they didn't appear in this specific gameplay demo isn't really a big deal. And to add to it, it's like you've already seen how good the throwing knives are, so it wasn't really necessary for them to showcase that item, in my opinion. Oh yeah, also before I continue, I'd really like to point out how pleased I am that with the weapon arts this time, well, I can't say this time around because weapon arts are a new mechanic, but I will say that I'm pleased that this time around where we're seeing demo footage for gameplay that's going to be featured in Dark Souls 3. I'm very pleased that all of the weapon arts aren't going to be attacks. And I was really happy to see that because now we're getting into the territory of deep gameplay mechanics where it's about decision making and it's not always about how strong your attacks are or how much super armor you have, and everything's not directly linked to aggressive gameplay. This time around, we get to see a weapon art that's more about maneuverability and more about being evasive and nimble. A mechanic that, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's been possible in practically every Souls game, maybe with the exception of Demon Souls. But this time around, it's not an advanced technique that's, I would say, hard to grasp or requires thousands of hours of gameplay to master. Now it's something that you get from the gate, and because of that, you can focus on being the stealthy character that you always wanted to be, and then you can start building the other more, I would say, aggressive techniques after the fact, because now, I don't know, it kind of seems like turning over a new leaf where you don't have to train yourself to be a thief now, or, you know, some kind of stealth class. You're given all the tools you need from the very beginning, and now the onus on you is to master them. and I really like that they took that avenue in this game. And I mean, I can go on forever about how pleased I am about that footage, but let's discuss the gameplay footage in a little bit more detail. Okay, so I had no real intention of using a mage class in Dark Souls 3. I was going to continue my legacy of playing thief class, probably in every game, but something struck me with this blue Estus flask. In a network test, it was called an Ash Estus flask. And what this flask does is replenish your weapon arts meter. Now, during the network test, it seemed as if when you depleted that meter, your weapon arts would become weaker, but it didn't necessarily stop you from executing them. Now, because of the footage that I've seen so far for the thief class, because that's more of an evasive weapon art, I'm kind of curious as to how that's going to work. And it almost makes me think that there might be a little bit more to the evasive weapon art that we got to see in the gameplay footage, because I guess it would diminish its effectiveness as the meter started to deplete. Which brings me to my point of using magic. I didn't really think I would have a real use or dependency for that flask, but it seems as if this mechanic is going to be something game changing. I might think of going more towards a spellcaster's route, because then I'll have more use for it. Because to me, the evasion seems as more of a mix-up tool. Now, I could be wrong about that, but just from what I've seen, it looks like a nice mix-up tool to kind of get in some surprise attacks on your opponent that you save for when you know that you're going to get your big moves in. And it's not something you want to really overuse, at least in my experience with the other games. Not that they had this type of technique, but I'm sure you're following what I mean when you have your ace up your sleeve and stuff like that. However, it looks as though the move doesn't use up a whole lot of your weapon arts meter. So because I would be using the flask anyway, I figured, well, why not at least have an attack move that depletes the bar as well, to give a little bit more usefulness for the blue Estus flask. So yeah, that's one of the things about the gameplay that kind of made me reconsider my position on playing the typical thief. I'm really considering maybe doing Academy Assassin or something along that lines this time around. But it also depends on what the final product looks like. But as of now, I'm really inspired to try something a little different after seeing that gameplay. Now, if the weapon arts are as diverse and unique as I suspect that they're going to be, we're going to see some really interesting builds in the near future. I guarantee you that. Plus, it's going to be really cool fighting different types of opponents who use different types of arts and I would say combinations of weapon arts and items and stuff like that, and have opponents really feel like different enemies and stuff. Rather than a majority of the community kind of gravitating towards the same type of builds and techniques and stuff like that. I don't know. I was never one for telling a person how to play a game, but it kind of gets a little stale when you're fighting the same type of opponent. Whereas, they'll do the same techniques I don't know. I won't say it was a completely bad thing, but at the same time, I don't know. I guess it would keep the game fresh if opponents were more diverse, and it looks like these weapon arts are really going to help with influencing that. And I really don't think, like, even if you were to fight opponents with similar weapons, if the weapon arts are as diverse as they're appearing to be in the little pieces of gameplay we got to see, I'm certain that you'll have people who play very similar in a very similar manners, but that little difference because of the items that they use and the techniques they use, and then the weapon arts. I don't know. I think we might actually see Dark Souls on a whole nother level, as far as PvP is concerned. And PvE as well. I mean, you could probably have a completely different experience with the game against certain bosses and enemies with the weapon art. So there's that. Oh yeah, and we finally get to see what that bow action is going to be about. I'm really impressed with how the bow's turning out. Like, I've seen the bow, thanks to Dark Souls 2, I've seen the bow do some really cool stuff, depending on which bow you're using, but rapid fire is very new, and I really like that. Like, I can't wait to see what I'm gonna be capable with that weapon. Like, that just gives me a whole set of ideas of traps and setups. And like, in Dark Souls 2, I've kind of mained a bow here and there, but I didn't really like the gameplay. And I've described why that is in some of my previous Dark Souls 3 discussion videos, so I won't waste time talking about it here. But I'll just make it very clear that from what I'm seeing in the demo for the thief class, oh, the bow looks so good. I love it. Alright, so obvious stuff out of the way. The game looks great. It looks like the development team spared no expense with the graphical quality. The game appears to run smoother. Has a crisp, very polished feel to it that no other Dark Souls game has had, from what it looks like. And it looks as if this, of course, is going to be the fastest of the series, where combat's going to be a little bit more frantic. You're going to be able to pressure your enemy a little bit harder, but it still seems to retain its same pacing, which is interesting. It is an interesting thing to think about, that the speed that they chose to go with in the game doesn't sacrifice the normal pacing of a Dark Souls game. So, bravo. And to be honest, I really don't have much more to say on the matter. It seems as though they're doing all the right stuff. They're adding all the right elements. Their mixture seems to be like they're mixing up something good here. So I guess all that's left is for me to wait until a release date and enjoy the game. So this has been Inconsequential Souls. I guess this will be the last episode of Thief Problems, because I don't think we'll have any more problems with Thief. And I hope to see you next time.